Welcome back. My name is Murphy Brown, and the last time I told the story about Anansi, the original Spider-Man, whose story started in Ghana. And that story was about how the Anansi stories got their name. Today, I am telling another Anansi story, and this story is about Anansi and a calabash full of wisdom. Now, Anansi is a bit of a trickster, and there are many cultures that have trickster figures. Anansi is the Ghanaian trickster, and his stories are told wherever the descendants of Ghanaians live today. As a child growing up, I heard many of these stories because some of my ancestors were taken from Ghana and scattered in places like Anguilla, which is an island in the Caribbean, and in Guyana, which is in South America. This story is about Anansi and the calabash of wisdom. A calabash is made from something that grows on a tree. It is round. When you pick it, you cut it in half, scoop out the inside, or you can cut a little hole, scoop out the inside, and it's used as a vessel for transporting water, grain, other liquid. Anansi got this huge calabash of wisdom from Nyame, the sky god. And Nyame instructed Anansi to share this wisdom with everybody else. But when Anansi looked into the calabash and he saw all the interesting things that were in there, Anansi became greedy. He did not want to share. Every day Anansi would go and look in the calabash, and he learned so many interesting things. He became wiser and wiser. He learned about history. He learned about geometry. He learned about geography. He learned other languages. He learned philosophy. Oh, Anansi was so wise. But he was supposed to share this wisdom with other people, with everybody else. After a while, Anansi was so enamored of the wisdom that he was receiving from this calabash that he decided maybe someone might discover that he had this calabash of wisdom and he had better hide it. So what did Anansi do? He got some very strong vines from the forest. He plaited the vines together to make them even stronger. And he tied the vines around the calabash. And he left one end dangling, and that end he tied around himself. He tied the calabash in front of him, and he decided that he was going to climb a very tall tree and hide the wisdom at the top of the tree. As Anansi was climbing, he kept slipping down, and he was becoming very frustrated. He climbed about a quarter of the way up the tree. He slipped down back to the bottom. He climbed up again. He slipped down again. He couldn't seem to get to the top of this tree. And he was thinking, now why is this happening? I'm supposed to be wise. Why am I not able to get to the top of this tree? And I really must hurry because my wife and my children are becoming very curious about where I disappear to every day for several hours. And I know them. They're going to start searching very soon. So Anansi was sweating, and that made matters worse. He kept slipping down this tree with this big calabash full of wisdom. And then he heard, he looked around. Who is that? It was his eldest son, who was quite young. What are you laughing at? Dad, if you want to get to the top of that tree, why don't you tie that calabash on your back? Because if you keep it in front of you, that is why you keep slipping down the tree, because you can't get a proper grip on the tree. So Anansi thought, he's right. That's what I'm going to do. So Anansi came down from the tree. He took the calabash off of him, and his son said, "What's in there, Dad?" And Anansi said, "It's something that is only for grown-ups." "Well, if it's for grown-ups, why aren't you sharing it with Mom?" "Well, it's for grown-up men." And his son stood there looking. Anansi asked his son for help to tie the calabash onto his back, which his son obliged. He didn't know what was in there. And Anansi started climbing the tree again. And this time, he was able to keep going up that tree. When he was at the top, he thought, wait a minute. I am wise. I have all the wisdom in this calabash. I'm wise. So why is it that my son had to give me advice on how to get to the top of this tree? Obviously, hoarding this knowledge, this wisdom, is not a good thing. Nyame was right. This is supposed to be shared with everyone. And so Anansi was so annoyed at his lack of wisdom, even though he had a whole calabash of wisdom, and that his son, this child, had wisdom, even though he didn't get any from the calabash. And Anansi thought, oh, I'm so upset. And he threw the calabash to the ground. It smashed, and the wisdom started to leak out. And then there was a storm. And as the rain came down, it washed the wisdom out to the sea, where the wisdom floated on the sea to every part of the world. So every person in the world today has a bit of wisdom. It doesn't matter if they're a child or an adult. Everyone has some bit of wisdom, and that wisdom came from Nyame, the sky god, and everyone has wisdom because Anansi was forced to share when he realized that hoarding the wisdom did not make him the wisest person in the world. And that is just one of the stories I heard as a child, the stories that traveled from Ghana in the holds of slave ships to wherever Africans from Ghana were enslaved, which is in the Caribbean islands, United States of America, in South America, in Central America, where Anansi has different names depending on who is telling the story. Thank you for listening, and I will be back with another Anansi story.